Welcome back, everybody, to the one and only The Bucket Bros, starring me, Bobby Marcico. I guess I'm the host today. And then I have here joining me, the legend, the man himself, Ronnie, the Ron Dog West. How are you, Ronnie?
Hello. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm fantastic. It is 10:30 Eastern, give or take, on September 10th, and we are talking NBA. And really anything basketball that comes to mind.
Very true. I would also almost say sports. I don't know if you got a chance. This is was the NFL kickoff weekend. I did get you hooked into my Survivor League. Did you enjoy any football this past weekend at all?
As much as I tend to nerd out on the NBA, I do enjoy other sportsing, and I actually worked on Sunday, so I mostly caught clips of games on TVs that were in rooms. But I did watch the Monday night game. The Thursday night game. Sorry, the Friday night game. Was there a Saturday game as well?
There was college football on Saturdays. So yes, there was
the NFL
football all day on Saturday.
Yeah. I watched the Friday night game. That was a nail biter. That was a fun one. I got roped into a fantasy league and totally missed the draft. So my team got auto drafted.
And I had the best team in the league. Oh, that's too bad. Yeah,
you would think luck should have it, but not for me. Not this time.
Yeah, as a semi-professional fantasy football player, I went like 1 or 2 and 3 or 1 and 4. Just stunk it up this past week, but that's what happens. Football. Oh, I got to go to there was an outdoor Bears watch party, and I got to go to that. Brought my little phone stand and put my headphones in and watched Red Zone and watched all the people and watched my son on the bounce house, and that was a good time on Sunday. It was beautiful out here in Chicago.
That's like you were almost there. Well, that's fabulous.
Mm-hmm. Let's get into some basketball.
Yeah. We talk about basketball. We had a different direction for this episode, but upon opening my phone yesterday, I saw the news of Jamal Murray signing a max extension with the Nuggets. Kind of weird timing in the offseason, but it totaled 4 years, $208 million. That's a big contract for a player who has the nickname of Bubble Murray, Playoff Murray, but just hasn't quite shown the consistency that we'd want to see for a max contract. I should have led with, it's been fun rooting for the Nuggets. I'm big fan of Joker, big fan of the starting lineup, or at least what's left of it. And now that they got another guy on the books for $50 million plus a year, I don't see how moving forward they're going to be able to squeeze out as much talent out of the rest of their players as they have in the past. They're really putting
stretching themselves.
Yeah, they're really stretching themselves and putting a lot into pocket player development here. I will say I love Jamal Murray. I've loved watching so many games from him. I've watched so many Jamal Murray playoff games, and he certainly lives up to the hype some of the time. And therein lies the problem. This past regular season was subpar for Murray's theoretical standards. And, even his playoff performance fell a little short. He was not a super efficient player. He had some big moments. Obviously, he had some game winners, against LA. But if those flashes of greatness weren't there, then you would have said overall that Jamal Murray just wasn't quite himself. And of course, this is coming off of a very underwhelming Olympic run, in which case we saw, I'll let you elaborate more on that, but in which case we just saw him essentially stink it up. I think the Nuggets have certainly made a lot of sacrifices with their starting lineup recently in order to keep their cap sheet looking nicer. They certainly, in terms of what they're owed to the other players, they have their big three. But I mean, you can argue that 2 out of those 3 contracts are just but those guys are a little bit overpaid. And now, especially with all the rule changes, with how the salary cap works, they're really going to have to work around the margins. And when teams force themselves to do that, they get lucky sometimes, but it's almost like they're significantly decreasing their chances of winning. Kind of like they're putting a nail in the coffin of their possible dynastic run here. I feel like in general the Nuggets have been relatively shrewd with a lot of the moves that they made, at least to get to their title run. But now I think the way that they're signing these players is a little bit short-sighted. One big question that's going to be looming is Aaron Gordon, who I believe has a player option for the last year of his contract. So he's paid through this year, but they're going to have to extend him as well. And I doubt that they're going to want to lose him for nothing like they did Contagious Caldwell-Pope. So here we are. Christian Braun's pretty good, I guess. Hope that he is able to fill big shoes. I don't know. I don't know if you had any thoughts on this.
No, I was definitely surprised when you sent over your initial outline, and that was like the top thing that had just kind of come over, because what we had talked about. I think just like you had said, Murray has been so underwhelming, at least the last 2 years, with injury and just like the playoff run. And I don't share the same fandom of the Nuggets as being a Timberwolves fan, just because we ran up against them a couple of years. And so, but I definitely respect his game. He's a Kentucky Wildcat, so obviously I'm good. I've rooted for him when he was coming up, and so. But yeah, it's surprising that he garners as much attention as he does. I guess he's got great agents that are able to get him in these spots. It's funny, like there was his New Balance commercial. And it's kind of like the thing that we were talking about before, is that he's kind of pegged as like the next big thing, but it's like you really haven't proved that you're in line to be the next big thing, especially with what the NBA has to offer. And so it's surprising that, I shouldn't say it's surprising, the Nuggets want to have him there long term. So it makes sense that they have to kind of overpay him a little bit just to keep him. You'd think that maybe he would get like a hometown discount, or that they would get a hometown discount, but obviously not. So yeah, it was surprising, but to me, it's what they're going to have to do. I think it would be much more of a surprise if they didn't try to re-sign him, or there was some sort of fight over negotiation. It just, to me, what for them is kind of what was the next thing to do. But yeah, it's a lot of money. And yeah, like you said, it's hard for them to make any other moves when you're kind of tied up with those players. And you only have so many roster spots. You only have like 9 other spots and so much money. So yeah, it's going to be tricky.
Certainly. Yeah, they
more spots than that, more than 9.
Well, yeah, I guess excluding starting lineup, 15 spots total at a roster spot. You see about 12 guys used throughout the regular season and as the main rotation guys, and then tends to be narrowed down to like 8, sometimes 7 during the playoffs. So I get where you're coming from, but yeah, he definitely did not get they definitely did not get the hometown discount. They didn't get the Jalen Brunson discount, so to speak, which is crazy to think about. Moving forward, he's going to be making about almost $20 million a year more than Jalen Brunson, who was top 6 in MVP voting this past season. Yes, Jamal Murray, we think of him as a great player within his position. Slightly undersized, I would call him a good defender, not great defender. He's a score first guy, which works very well on a team where your center is also your point guard. Yeah, maybe that was just a sort of a small market mindset, small market move. where they felt like if we don't pay this guy now, the Lakers, would love to have a shooting guard. But at any rate, I it's it's hard for me to know, without looking at everybody's contract lined up in his position, what they really thought his market was going to be if they didn't sign him to this contract, and that was what was kind of confusing to me. I mean, there were certainly like smaller guards and shooting guards, this offseason who seemed to sign for minimum, sign for less than what we would think that their worth is to a roster. So maybe next year is going to be where a lot of like shooting guards, scoring guards get signed to bigger contracts. We'll see. Maybe the market for them will be a little less saturated, or at least there will be a lot more opportunities. I mean, you look at Jamal Murray's output. It's not that he's a bad player. But we kind of see where he is now. He's like a low 20 point per game scorer, pretty efficient shooting numbers. Obviously, his efficiency is going to be a little bit blown up just because of the offensive style that he plays within, where he doesn't have to be the primary ball handler. There's nothing wrong with Jamal Murray as a player. We love Jamal Murray. He's absolutely fantastic. But yeah, to give him, essentially what Paul George is making, although that's another contract that you can argue is not my favorite anyway. Yeah, I'm just worried what kind of how that's going to lock the Nuggets up, and essentially if this version of the squad doesn't work, then they're going to see themselves start to middle out a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm looking over the numbers here. I'm a little disappointed this isn't up to date, but just seeing do you know what Russell Westbrook's number is this coming year?
I think he signed a 2-year that gets him like $6 million a year.
That makes him like the 6th highest paid player on the team. There's a drop off. It's like there's 4 players getting paid, and then a bunch of guys I don't know besides Dario Saric. So yeah, that's. When you're so top heavy, it's going to kill you at some point.
Yeah. So I mean, just to go over the numbers a little bit. So Jamal Murray is set to make $36 million this year to finish out his previous contract, and then his new contract is going to start next year with $46.4 million and ascend all the way to $57.5 million in 28-29, which is going to take him through his season where he's 31, 32 years old. Now, I guess that would be the saving grace of this: is they signed Jamal Murray to the big contract at the appropriate time in his career. They're not, contrary to Paul George, who I brought up, they're not getting 34-year-old plus version of Jamal Murray here. He's getting the big deal at exactly when his prime is going to be, exactly when you expect him to be at his absolute best. So, we'll see. I mean, obviously, I'm still rooting for the Nuggets. I would like to see them continue to win at a high level. I would like to see them, us talk about them being a finals favorite, or like a top 4 team in the West. But yeah, I mean, it's going to get tougher year by year now that they've put themselves in the position.
Yeah. So
at any rate,
you wanted to do some predictions on some end of season awards. And I think one that at least got us talking a little bit was the Rookie of the Year, and probably not for good reason by most people. but I definitely thought, and I had stopped you in the middle of our conversation because I felt it deserved to be on here of just that conversation. But I'll let you kind of top off, just because I am fairly unaware of most of the rookies. So I will let you kind of give a warm introduction to these new rookies and kind of your thoughts on them.
Yeah, no, I'm not holding you accountable. It's okay. As somebody who has a full-time job and a toddler, I can't be this into NBA basketball and also follow really any other sports as closely. So I am guilty of somebody who I learn, as I was telling you before, I learn about these rookies when it's time for the draft. That's basically when I start to learn about these guys. I hear blips about them, when they're in their, I don't know, G League, college,
No, it's fair. I could
overseas.
give you an F2 preview, so I guess that's the thing too. Like, but yeah, sorry, continue.
But anyway, going in, so when considering who we think is going to be favorite for Rookie of the Year, um, you have to consider basically who has the best runway. It's not always who do you think is the best player or who do you think is going to be the best player, but it's who has the best runway to get the amount of minutes and opportunities to be a part of a, I don't know, like a star level player or be at least a good player who's contributing to winning on a winning team. Who's actually going to get those opportunities? Who's going to get those minutes? Obviously, we know that this draft was not the strongest class. Everybody keeps saying that. There is going to be fantastic players that come out of this draft class. There's going to be people who we consider best in the NBA at some point. But a lot of it is very raw, and I think that's part of the issue here.
It's a good word.
I mean, yeah, my number one for who I think is most likely to win Rookie of the Year is Zach Edey, who was taken number 9 by Memphis in this year's draft. Obviously, I feel like he was one who did gain a lot of popularity in the college game. I think one thing that stands out about him is he's a little bit older of a player. He wasn't a one and done college player, and the Memphis Grizzlies they've already shown themselves as a good team, and now that they're hopefully getting over some of the injury issues and some of the other off-court controversies that they've been experiencing over the past year or so, they're people aren't talking about them enough just because we haven't seen them perform for a year plus now, and so I think they're going to be in the mix for playoff contending teams, and I think Zach Edey is essentially going to have to be their starting center. I think he's going to be a great pick and roll partner with Ja. I think he's going to get a lot of looks around the basket as a result. It wouldn't surprise me if we end the season with him being like an 18-12 kind of guy, and generally a rookie who's pulling down those kind of numbers. Especially if we add like 2 to 3 blocks a game on top of it. If he's getting the minutes, I think that's going to be there. He definitely shows good defensive instincts. We'll see how he does as a playmaker, but I guess the good thing is he doesn't really have to take on heavy usage this year, and that's always going to set up a young player for some more success. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see what Zach Edey does. He's got big shoes to fill, but especially along a stretch 4 like Jaren Jackson Jr., boy, is there going to be 0 buckets around the rim with the Memphis Grizzlies. That's going to be a lot of fun to watch. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think he's at least the clear-cut favorite just because of his matchups in the West. And I feel like he's such a good fit for the Grizzlies because I feel like you're going to want to see him against Wemby. You're going to want to see him against Holmgren, AD. Like, there's a lot of long guys in the West. Obviously, there's lots of long guys in the NBA. But I think those matchups, kind of the younger ones, at least with Chet and Wemby, I think it's going to kind of give him a little more notoriety. I think those are going to be kind of like key matchups. It's stuff you're going to see on SportsCenter. And he's just kind of a name. He played Big Ten basketball. Especially looking at this, even being a homer and saying, like, I think Dillingham might be one of those that just because of the cast that's around him that might give him decent numbers and good looks, and he'll be playing in primetime basketball. A lot of these other guys, like you said, people are going to say that it's a weak class just because there's a lot of people that we don't know. I know, like, like you said, you do some of the research, and I'm very, very not limited to how much energy that I'm going to give to doing NBA draft prospect research. But like I've seen some of the games, I know some of the names, but yeah, it's and like you said, there's going to be high quality guys that are going to come out of this, whether they're the first or the second round. It's like we just were talking about the Nuggets, and somebody's getting paid $51 million who was a second round pick on the Nuggets. So yeah, there's going to be talent that's going to come out of this. It's going to be curious to see where it comes from. And yeah, that's at least kind of what the starting point of where our conversation kind of led to, with these odds when we were looking at them, because Zach Edey is plus 500, and kind of leading the way over Reed Shepherd of the Rockets, and I'm going to slaughter his name, Matthias Bulls. But I've seen he's definitely been a confident player. I've seen a lot of stuff about him here in Chicago. So I feel like he's going to get a lot of playing time. And I apologize to his entire family and to his city and to his country for just butchering his name like I just did.
Yeah, well, I mean, I put Matas Vitzelas on this list because, just just because I feel like the Bulls. He may be one of those like Michael Porter Jr. picks where he was really, really high pre-draft, going into rather the year before the draft when everybody was ranking their prospects, and he fell quite a bit in part because of how inconsistent of a shooter he is, in spite of how good his shot looks, and also just based on how poorly the G League Ignite performed this year. I think they were like 3-30. I'd have to look it up, but they were at the
and they're no longer in existence.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to be part of a team that is not just remediated, but literally just poof gone, and then call this guy a rookie of the year candidate. But with the Bulls offloading Caruso and DeRozan, there's a potential for Vitzelas to get some big minutes. His summer league showing was actually pretty promising. The shooting struggles continued a little bit. Some of those shots just look really shaky. It's almost like he mistimes the shot occasionally, and then sometimes he just throws it up super confidently, and it's a super difficult shot. It's nothing but the bottom of the net. But he, for a guy who's tall and skinny like he is, he showed some really good body control and just quickness of his movements that were absolutely stellar. Curious to see how that develops. Another guy that we might end up talking about again today, with Josh Giddey, who's not an ideal NBA player for just sort of like his all around game, but with somebody like that on the floor, I feel like Matas can get some good looks. So we'll see. I hope he plays well enough that he ends up being one of the rookie of the year candidates. But he was kind of one of my long shot guys that I just feel like I should mention. Another player who I feel like is a little bit lower in the draft for somebody that you would predict to be rookie of the year, but I just feel like has the style of play and the opportunity that would make it work was Dalton Connect with the Lakers. So number 17.
Why you were going to say that? I knew you were going to say that name for some reason. We didn't even speak about this before. I saw that name and I was like, I think he's going to say this one.
Yeah. No. I would put him higher than a lot of these other lottery picks, just because he's shown that he can be a great shooter. He's really aggressive. He's confident, and he in both not just catch and shoot off the ball type stuff, but also with a little bit with playmaking, as we saw in the summer league. He was sort of outshining Bronny James, during those summer league minutes. Now, summer league is not NBA, but to see a guy play like that, I feel like you just sort of see the mold that he can fill playing off of a guy like LeBron, and I think he's gonna come in. He's gonna impress early, and I think he's gonna start to earn some minutes throughout the season. I could see him eventually getting even like fourth quarter crunch time minutes, and bolstering his case for rookie of the year.
No, the reason I think I saw his name and was thinking like this is probably who you're going to say, and it's, even though it's a name, from what I remember, I feel like you have a bad taste in your mouth anytime it's mentioned. But LeBron and the Lakers are kind of, I shouldn't say known, but within the last couple of years have been more open to younger guys that are confident, willing to play, like an Austin Rivers. I think he's not saying Reeves, excuse me. I think he's going to have similar type of development process. And I think there's definitely a chance for him to be able to kind of grow given the environment that he's in. I think a lot of people poo-poo on LeBron and his environment that he kind of produces, but I think there are some good things that come from it developmentally for some guys, not for everybody. But no, I think there's a decent shot for him to be able to grow within that organization.
Yeah. He's another older guy too, and so certainly that helps, and that he's going to perhaps jump in and be a little bit more NBA ready than some of these other guys. It's crazy that we're talking about some of the more experienced players on this list and ranking them very highly, but I think that's what's going to end up making them stand out, just at least in their first year. Again, I'm not saying that they're going to have, of anybody on this draft class, that they're going to have the most successful NBA career, but to start, I think that they're going to be able to get on the floor and make the impact right away.
Yeah. No, it's funny. We just talked about the number 9, 11, and 17 picks, just in case anybody was curious. So,
yeah, and the player who I think, and this is not news, but this is not a brand new opinion, but the person who I think is truly the best player in this draft is Reed Sheppard. I really I think we've talked about this before, but I really think that this guy has just such an ideal set of skills. I mean, the risk of being in poor taste here, he's kind of like white Steph Curry. He really is. He's just got like a really smooth, quick shot. He's a guy who comes quick off the dribble, and he is so smooth with the way he releases the ball in virtually any capacity. I mean, like underhand layups, each hand, and he's kind of poses that threat at all times. The reason that he wouldn't necessarily be my number one guy for Rookie of the Year is just because he's going to have to find minutes. Obviously they're pretty saturated at the guard position, and not just with their veteran Fred VanVleet, but I mean they're still in the development phases with Jalen Green, who's shown some great flashes in the second half of the season, and then obviously they're really high on the Thompson twin. Is it Oscar or Amen? I believe Amen is the one who plays for the Rockets. I always get the two flipped. But I mean obviously they're really high on Thompson, and so the minutes that he plays, he's just going to have to. It's going to be because he stands out. He's going to have to earn them. So I think there's the opportunity there. He's essentially going to have to outplay Jalen Green, and then on top of that, it's like, well, do you really give yourself that small of a backcourt? And is that really going to be what contributes to winning this year? Perhaps not. But in another universe, he would be my surefire number one pick here. But I had to drop him down on the list just because he's playing on a team that is definitely going to be trying to compete for the playoffs this year. So we'll see.
Do you have any other rookie conversation before we talk about the gorilla in the corner rookie? Is there any other ones that you need to get out on on Reicher? Is there anybody else that you had, Holland, whoever that's on this list that you feel you need to just basketball vomit on us, whatever you need to get out before we dive down that?
I appreciate you letting me do that. You mentioned Dillingham briefly. He'll have to steal the starting position from Conley. That's another guy who's just the opportunity's there, but he has to outperform the veterans in front of him. So we'll see. We'll see. But I think Alex Zari, even though he's the number 2 pick, even though he's on a bad team and we expect him to likely start, I would think he's a bit of a long shot. I think defensively he's gonna show some promise quickly. Maybe he'll do well on the rim, but I also just foresee him, just like anybody who plays for the Wizards these days, just show up a lot of or throw up a lot of just like nasty, ill-advised. That's not your game. On the team. Oh yeah, I mean Kyle Kuzma's a lifer. He is a Wizards lifer. I I think he's just going to happily go 19-9 for the Wizards for the rest of his career and be overpaid to do it. But you know what? That's not a bad market to be in. That's not a bad way to live out your NBA career. So good for him. He's already got his ring, right? So why not?
Yeah.
Why not? And then Reza Shea, very similarly. I just the wing depth on Atlanta is already is just so heavy. I mean, they had to like give away John Collins for nothing. I mean, I feel like they had to pay the Jazz to give away John Collins just a couple of years ago, and so I mean, Reza Shea, obviously, he's a good player, he's a smooth shooter, but maybe Trae Young can make his life easier, but I just don't see it. I don't see him being a 16 plus point per game scorer right off the bat. I think he's going to get hunted a lot. I think he's going to get embarrassed in a lot of games, which is expected. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that's how it's going to go for the rest of his career, but I think it's going to be a rocky start for him, and that's okay. That's okay. Just not rookie of the year material this year. But anyway, who's your gorilla?
The one that we were talking about before. So when you would throw me this list and we started talking, so Zach Edey is plus 500, Reed Shepherd's plus 600. And then I look down at the bottom of the list and I see this name, Bronny James, Los Angeles Lakers, plus 30,000 to win the Rookie of the Year. I just looked up his contract. So yeah, he did sign. It's like a 4-year with a team option, it looks like. So, but I think he's going to be on the Lakers opening day lineup. And at some point will fulfill LeBron's dream that he had talked about 5 or 6 years ago, actually out in public, of wanting to be on the floor with Bronny at the same time. They'll do it. It'll be a photo op. And my own conspiracy theory is that he would get some sort of a calf strain or do something that would open up a roster spot. He would go down to the G League to kind of recover and would probably stay there for most of the year, besides making maybe a 10-day appearance at some point and then going back down. Being a hopeful G League insider, I hope that he ends up kind of being there, and that I might have a chance to see him at the Windy City Bulls game. So,
you think his dad will come to his games?
No, because they'll be going on at the same time, unless like the Lakers and Bulls are both in town and it works out. Granted, there is the Pacific City Lakers, I think is who he would be playing for, the Bay City Lakers, one of the two. I'm messing up the name for one of those, but even though you made the comment that the most tickets or whatever, the most bids, I'm not a gambler. What was it? The most money had gone in on Bronny.
Listen, if you don't put next month's paycheck on Bronny James winning Rookie of the Year, you're just missing out on free money. I mean,
Yeah.
LeBron James is his dad. How could he not win, right?
Yeah.
Of course. They're just going to give it to him, I'm pretty sure.
Is this what you
said? Grandfather at an award, right?
Yeah.
That's how that works.
No. Unless for some reason, like the whole Lakers squad gets injured and he has to come up and has a Jeremy Lin style run in January, then I don't see him getting it. I'm not saying it's impossible. Like, anything is possible, but he needs a few things to fall in line for that to work out. It's a great bet, though. That's probably why, is that it's plus 30,000. He's a developmental player. To me, it makes sense. Let him develop. And so we'll kind of do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't have much else to say on that. I can't wait to see that moment where Bronny and his dad are playing together. It could be very special. I mean, I hope his rookie season goes well enough that he can get consistent minutes, but as you mentioned, we'll see. There's not like a clear runway for that right now, but yeah, I mean, eventually he could be a very good rotation player. But anyway, we won't keep fueling that fire. We can move on. Which one are you feeling next?
I like sixth man of the year because I know these names, so that helps.
Yeah. Well, it certainly it helps when it helps when I mean it's going to be a veteran player, right? So
Yeah.
increase
Hey,
the
I hope
chances
to know
here.
all those rookies' names at some point. Like I said, uh, it's the energy that you have to put into getting to know all of these players. It's like, do you need to know all the bench players? Bobby does, and so it's. I'm glad that one of us is on top of it. But I plan on doing a lot more and seeing these guys kind of come up. Yeah, I'm excited for the season. I think it's going to be a lot of good things happening for basketball for us, and so yeah. But yeah, let's get into the sixth man of the year.
All right. I mean, do you want to start with any of your favorites, or I can jump in first? Up to you.
I wouldn't say I have any favorites. Obviously, I'm a Nas Reed fan, um, but I think the list that you kind of put together, excuse me, I think like Alex Caruso, he's one of those. Everywhere he goes, he makes an imprint on the floor. Um, has he ever been close in the running? I feel like he's either been a starter for probably too many games and just doesn't make the cut. But to me, he's the embodiment of somebody that you want to have coming off the bench to kind of lead your second team, whether it's just kind of the hustle, the smart plays, just the way that he handles himself on the floor is who you want to have to continue your starting lineup whenever you have somebody that's on your team. Yeah, I like Nas Reed, obviously being a Timberwolves fan, but his ability to and I got a feeling he's probably going to play a lot more, and not to say that I think there's going to be a downturn in Gobert. I just feel there you saw the French. I feel like it's the Wolves might be not taking notes from them and only play him 5 minutes since they invested so much in him. But I definitely think there's going to be more time for others to kind of step up and kind of fill that offensive hole that he kind of is sometimes. Anytime that the whole entire Midwest is shocked when you hit a fadeaway jumper, is not great for your offensive skills set unless you start doing that consistently. To me, I don't think anybody would be surprised if Nas Reed hit one of those shots just because he's hitting threes and just his ability to be so smooth on the offensive end, I think is one of those where maybe you should flip Gobert and put him as a sixth man, because I think as far as for the team and where this team is headed, you had talked about Dillingham, and even if he does come off the bench, I feel having Nas Reed, Dillingham, and after the Olympics, and it's a gut thing, I feel like Edwards is going to want to play more on that second team just because he was the leader on that Olympic second team. And maybe he wants to kind of, and it's funny, I'm seeing it more with Justin Jefferson, the Vikings, how these younger guys are wanting to step up and be more of a leader. So I definitely can see him wanting to maybe be more on that second unit with these other guys to kind of help them develop. So yeah, looking down here, yeah, I like Buddy Hield, Jordan Clarkson, Dante DiVincenzo. I think Clarkson probably has the best shot just on the offensive side. He's able to put up points fast. I like, you mentioned, like, I'm going to mess up his name too, Jaime Jaquez Jr. with Miami. I think, like you said, he's probably going to start a lot of games. He is very good. I liked kind of his last third of the season this past year in some of his. Did they play in the play-in tournament? They didn't make it to the actual playoffs, I don't think. Or were they the eighth seed?
I
feel like he had some playoff moments.
They were an injury-ridden
Yeah.
first-round exit.
Yeah. But I think he had some moments, and that's what at least made people kind of remember his name. And it'll be kind of interesting to see him and his development with the Heat, and kind of I'm curious to see, when does Jimmy fall off after playing so hard for so long. I think he definitely had a few injuries last year, and I think it's going to be something to kind of keep an eye on. But obviously they have Bam, who I think is the leader of that team and should be able to carry them for a while. But yeah, this is 6-man talk. But yeah, I like the list that you put together. I think I'll let you talk about Malik Monk and a few of the other ones too.
Well, yeah, I mean, Malik Monk certainly has. He just he was one of the favorites going in for 6-man of the year last year, and I think it's. I mean, certainly, I think Naz Reid is in a good position to repeat, but the award tends to go to you. It's like the best offensive player coming off the bench on one of the best teams. Is essentially what it is. That's who tends to win the award. I mean, you'd like to see it carved out a different way, but that's just kind of what we tend to see, which comes to reason. I mean, do I think Malik Monk's my favorite? No, and the reason is because one of the guys on this list, Karis LeVert, I feel like I'm going to put closer to the top. I know I mentioned this on one of our previous episodes, but when Cleveland was dealing with a lot of injuries down the stretch of the season, Karis LeVert had to start, and he was having like several like double or near double games, essentially playing the point guard. I feel like he's one of those guys. He's always gonna bother people a little bit just because his offensive game is slightly incomplete with his inconsistent shooting. But he's an incredible athlete. I do feel like the Cavs continuity is going to carry a long way this year. That's my big prediction. That's my crazy prediction. Is the Cavs continuity is going to carry a long way this year. And I think Karis LeVert coming off the bench, I think he's going to continue to grow off of what he did last year. So I do feel like he's going to leapfrog some of these other guys who are favored a little bit higher. As you mentioned, I would love to talk more about Jaime Hawkins Jr. perhaps stealing this one, but I think just with his role in the Heat, I do feel like he's going to start too many games to qualify. We'll see how it plays out. I mean, another favorite of mine is Josh Hart. I suppose the only thing that would prevent him from being able to win the award would be that he's essentially competing for it with his own teammate Dante DiVincenzo, who has obviously a very different role on that team than Josh Hart does. And just like we were talking about, he would be sort of an atypical player just because he's not that high level scorer that you tend to see. He's kind of more of the guard size player who can play center minutes for you, who can lead your team in rebounding when he needs to. So
the grit.
Yeah, exactly. I would love to see Josh Hart with it. I feel like in order for him to win, that would be some like really high level voting, as opposed to your typical. Well, Malik Monk averaged 18 points a game this year coming off the bench. He's the obvious front runner. So, they. As you mentioned, the list I threw together, I didn't really throw it together, but we could pretend I threw it together. They put Norm Powell on there. I think they would be I don't know, that's like the same as like putting like Lou Williams or Jordan Clarkson on the list, just because they've been a guy who's either won it or been in position to win it year after year. Their role, role that they were destined for in the NBA is 6-man. So they're always going to be on the short list. But no,
if
I mean,
Jamal
I would
Crawford got a jersey, he'd be on this list.
exactly. So, but no, I mean, I think the winner and runner up from last year, Naz Reid and Malik Monk, are the probable favorites. But I really foresee a guy like Karis LeVert being a sneaky one this year. I do feel like that the 6-man of the year tends to go to somebody who either you would 100% predict to get it, or somebody who you hadn't even thought of. And so that's one of those. It's a fun one because it's always a guy who just kind of like makes his way on the list by having a bigger season than you would expect. Certainly Caruso, he's got the opportunity. I do feel like the Thunder, they're a team with such great depth. We're going to see Caruso make an impact. I feel like he's going to fit seamlessly into that roster, but I just don't know that he's going to play enough of a role to in terms of like usage to actually be strongly considered. So I would love to see it. I would love to see it happen. Big Alex Caruso fan.
But I was telling you, he's been all over my social media feed. So that's like, as soon as I saw the name, I'm like, yeah, he's.
Didn't you say he married somebody famous, or he's with somebody famous?
Yeah, one of the last seasons of Big Brother that I watched, Haley Boucher or something. Yeah, I think they both went to Texas A&M. So.
Oh, okay, gotcha. They got that connection. Wow.
The way back, he just got inducted to their like Hall of Fame this past year or week. So.
How precious.
Go Alex.
Anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, because he got engaged or married to her. So that's what it was. Engaged.
I gotcha. Congratulations.
It's your breaking pop culture news for the Oklahoma City Thunder fans.
Well, we got to break up this NBA talk a little bit, right? Any other awards you want to talk about today? We can keep going. I can keep going.
I think I liked your list here of the defensive player of the years. We'll save MVP for next one just because it could be so wide open. I think some of the comments you made about like we've talked about Wemby at length. Chet Holmgren is a guy I need to watch more film on. I definitely have seen plenty of highlights, but I've never actually sat and watched a full game and wanted to see how he plays. But you definitely made some comments about Jonathan Isaac, with him finally being healthy and coming back and just how his role is. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about Jonathan Isaac, Chet Holmgren, and OG Anunoby.
Yeah. Oh man, I hope we didn't lose too many avid NBA enthusiasts here just
because of my awful vocabulary,
mispronunciation. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and say that the award's gonna be either Wemby's or Holmgren's to lose. I feel like the young guys, second-year players, are going to go head-to-head for this one. Yeah, I mean, you just don't see guys get block shots as frequently as these guys do anymore. It's kind of an oddity in today's game, just because of the way the game is played. A lot of it is played so far away from the basket. So really, though, I mean, certainly Victor Wembanyama is going to be considered for Defensive Player of the Year and All Defensive Team probably every single year that he plays enough games is healthy for it. But your team also has to be a good defensive team in order to win it. So that's a lot of it's going to be riding on that, which would actually make me favor Holmgren in that respect. I'm not saying that he's a better or more versatile defensive player than Wembanyama. Wembanyama, it's crazy that we're comparing like a 7'4" guy to a 7'2" guy and saying like, well, this guy's he's even he's so much bigger. We're calling him an athletic freak compared to the other guy who's just like 7'2" with a wingspan that never ends. But I again, I think Holmgren's going to be on the better team, so he's and he's probably going to be on a team that's going to have a better defensive rating. But who knows? Maybe the Spurs can be like a middling team this year who gets there based on their defense. In which case, Wemby's got a really good shot. Isaac, I love to put him on the list just because I believe, if you really tease it out, he's like the best per minute defender. He has, and I don't know that this is going to change necessarily anytime soon, but he has a more reserve role on the Magic, and I don't foresee him getting heavy starting minutes anytime soon. So that's what's going to knock him down a peg. But I absolutely want to talk about him. I did kind of like loosely throw him on my as a fun guy to mention for most improved player as well for the same reason. I'm just hoping that we actually get like a full healthy season with him, where we get to really see him finally blossom. It's almost like his developmental years have just been extended by injuries. But he's still young enough, and there's still enough promise, and he shows that he's can make a big impact on the court. So we'll see. But anyway, he's more of a fun mention than anything else. But yeah, I think in order for Rudy Gobert to win another Defensive Player of the Year award, he would have to outshine his previous performances. I mean, something crazy would have to happen. He would have to be so almost unexpectedly good in order to win again. Voter fatigue is a real thing. We saw it with Nikola Jokic not winning his third MVP in a row 2 years ago. I mean, he got his third MVP, sure. And I'm not saying Joel Embiid is undeserving. There's never been an undeserving MVP award winner, but yeah, no, I just I don't think that voters are going to give him the fifth award that would set him above all other Defensive Player of the Year award winners. I don't think that he's gonna get that record-setting fifth Defensive Player of the Year award in his career. I'm just saying, in the rest of his career, I don't think he's going to get another one unless he anchors the defense to just like new heights, new unforeseen heights. So, obviously, some of the other favorites we like to throw out there. One I want to mention in particular is Herb Jones. He was, he's considered a front court player, but he was the smallest front court player on the first team all defensive team this past year. And I think amongst these, I may even consider him amongst first all defensive team guys. I may consider him perhaps the most versatile defender, just because being more of like a 6'8" guy as opposed to like a 7'4" guy, he is able to really defend like essentially every position on the floor. The Pelicans, they're going to have a weird year just because the way their lineup is set going into the season. Unless there's a way that they can trade Brandon Ingram for something that makes sense, they may very well. I mean, they're either throwing someone on the bench who is not expected to be playing a bench role this year, or Zion Williamson is going to be playing center. So it's going to be a very strange year. And if that is the case, then Herb Jones' role as their defensive anchor is going to be even bigger this year. He passes the eye test and the advanced stat test when it comes to defensive impact, and the guy's absolutely phenomenal. So it helps that he can keep himself on the floor because his 3-point numbers have improved over the years. Do I think he's going to necessarily be another 40%, have another 40% year? That's tough to say. Guys tend to converge back towards the mean. No, I honestly, if it wasn't, I know I threw the Twin Towers out there as my favorites right off the bat, but if it wasn't one of them, I think my vote's going to Herb Jones this year.
Just who was the last guard to win?
Marcus Smart.
Okay.
Yeah, and before that, I shouldn't have brought it up myself. I just cornered myself.
No, I was just curious. It's like there's been a lot of Gobert, and I feel like a lot of the guys that are in contention this year are all large, long, like fours or fives.
Was the last guard before him Gary Payton? I mean, I know that. Well, no, Peyton would have come after him. MJ was 88, but gosh, I mean, the last like non-center or front court player to win before him was Kawhi, and before then, gosh, when was the last guard? I'm sorry, you guys, I'm actually having to look this up.
This was an on-the-spot trivia, so I.
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't have to replan. Yeah, it was the last guard prior to him, Gary Payton in '96. Other than that, it's been.
So it's been a big man award essentially. If you can clog the lane, you've got a good shot to win it, to block shots. Which, to your point of Gobert having a really hard time winning a fifth, I was surprised he won this past year, and I think, like you mentioned, with Wemby and Chet in the league now, I just think there's more of a reason to give it to one of them for having whatever it's going to be, 3 to 4 blocks a game average. Probably not that high, but it's going to be bigger.
I mean, that's what they did this past year. That's what they did.
Yeah, that's exactly nuts. So
I'd have to pull up the precise number, but I think Wemby was like 3.5 blocks a game. Chet was close to he's. I think
you're going to have Zach Edey doing the same thing, and so that's what I was saying. I feel like the West is going to be shot blocker paradise. Like those guys are just going to be. It's going to be volleyball essentially. So yeah, I just don't see Gobert doing that. Like, and yeah, like you said, it's. What can he do more that's going to, like, he'd have to be the offensive player to go with it, I think, in order for him to be able to even have a shot of winning defensive player of the year. Like, he all of a sudden has to be a better all-around player in order to get that next one, I think, that's what, and with the competition that's there now and them getting better with more experience, I don't see it happening.
Yeah. I mean, another name that would be fun to throw out there is OG Anunoby. He's going to be a part of a very, I mean, we would think anyway, a very strong defensive team, a team that is perhaps poised to be the number one defensive team this year. Obviously, they're going to be competing with a good cast here, including, they're soon to be big rivals out east, the Celtics. But yeah, I mean, if he's essentially going to be the Herb Jones of that team. Well, I mean, amongst starters anyway, because we already mentioned Josh Hart earlier. But yeah, I mean, he's kind of like your jack of all trades, do it all defensive player, and yeah, I mean, if he ends up playing big minutes and at the end of the year, the Knicks have the best defense in the league, I can certainly see him stealing that one. I mean, obviously, Bam Adebayo is always going to make this list. Anthony Davis is always going to be somebody that you want to talk about. Your Drew Holidays. It wouldn't surprise me if somebody from the Magic, ends up sneaking up this list as well. They were one of the best defenses in the league last year. In terms of guys from that team who made themselves on the all-decent defensive team. On the second team was Jalen Suggs. Well earned, well deserved. But yeah, we'll see. Certainly, a Celtic could once again be favored to win the award. But I feel like with their style, it's a lot more like the defensive burden is dispersed so well amongst their guys that they don't. It's funny. It's funny that we call like, well, were they the best defensive player of the year this year? Well, there was a lot of good defensive player of the years this year, but if you're not seen as the anchor of the defense for your team, and like I said, in the Celtics, the responsibility is a little bit dispersed, which is what makes them such a great team, is because there's so many guys who could potentially take that claim on any on another team. So it makes it less likely just for one of those guys to come away with it.
Agreed. Yeah, and obviously the only one that you didn't mention on this list for some odd reason was Jaden McDaniels, another great wing player for the Timberwolves. Since they were weren't they the number one defense last year, the Timberwolves? I think they ended the season with the defensive statistics. I know they were close to top and were at the top for a while. I don't know if they actually finished the season ranked at the top.
Yeah, they were certainly up there. It was. Yep, T-Wolves number 1, Magic number 2, Celtics number 3, Thunder number 4 in terms of overall
Where
defensive
were the Knicks?
rating. Wait. The Knicks were number 10.
Wow. For them being a Thibodeau team, I figured they would have been higher. And with and with the hype surrounding them and their rise this past year, and having a great defense, I just thought statistically they would have been higher.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the numbers themselves, the defensive rating between the second and 10th spot is really not that big of a jump. I mean, the T-Wolves actually at 109 really separated themselves from the Magic, who are 111.3. So that is So they were definitely the big standouts. Yeah, go T-Wolves.
Oh yeah. Well, we're coming up against it. I was going to throw an injury question at you. I didn't know if you could handle something like that. Only because, and we'll see if this is a inventive segment here, and obviously
this is a good opportunity for you to work on your podcast editing.
Yeah. This is where I would say that this would be a trivia and tactics session brought to you by T4 Medical. I've seen it a lot in football, and obviously it happens in basketball a lot. What makes a high ankle sprain one of those that takes so long to recover from? Obviously in basketball, can be something where a guy can come back just because obviously I played for so long. I had like rubber ankles at one point. I can just I can still stand and twist my ankles. But at least with football, it's definitely one of those things that takes them out for a couple of weeks. What is the difference versus just a regular rolled ankle versus a high ankle sprain? How does that classify degree wise as far as, is there a break? Is it a stress fracture? What exactly is that included in a high ankle sprain?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a fair one. That is a fair one to throw at me. And let me preface this. I've sort of alluded to it, but the reason Ronnie's asking me, I'm a physician assistant. I've worked in emergency medicine. I've never been an orthopedist. I've never worked for an orthopedic group. So I mean, certainly I've told patients in the past that I think they have a high ankle sprain, but have never been able to definitively.
I'll put at the bottom. Do not. This is.
Yeah. This
any
is not
doctor's
advice.
Please check with your own doctor. And this is not professional advice. This is sports banter.
Yeah, all the disclaimers. But simply put, a high ankle sprain, it goes along with the name, and that the injury does actually, the main part of the injury occurs higher up than the ankle joint itself. It's a breach in what's called the syndesmosis, which is like a fascial tissue, sort of like a supportive tissue that connects your tibia and fibula. So most ankle sprains. You've just been doing some light reading on the side there. Is that where these questions are coming from?
Yeah, no, I'm finding what that word was specifically that you said.
Yeah, so most ankle sprains are going to be, if this is your right leg, if you could picture, they're going to be an inversion injury, where the ankle points or the foot points towards the middle, just because the set of ligaments that you have on the lateral ankle, on the outside of the ankle, are a lot weaker than the ones that you have on the inside of the ankle. It's just the way the joint is set up. It's kind of a silly setup for the joint, but that's why it's so easy. Even if you're just doing it in your chair right now, to invert your ankle than it is to evert your ankle. So those injuries are very common. Typically, even if you injure those ligaments to a higher grade, you can still come back, pretty well. Very rarely are they surgical. I suppose that differs for high level athletes versus bums like you and me who just want to win at a game of horse. But yeah. So the a high ankle sprain tends to be an ankle turning the other way. So it's a lot less natural of a movement, a lot less natural of a way for you to injure yourself. And again, it's the tearing of the syndesmosis that connect the distal meaning further away from the head, or center of the body rather. The distal part of that ligament that connects the fibula and the tibia. And it makes it more of a non-weight bearing injury, and you actually have to immobilize it, versus ankle sprains are injuries that you want to do early range of motion exercises. You want to rehab most ankle sprains, lateral ankle sprains, pretty early on, but high ankle sprain you actually need to immobilize and take time to recover from.
So what's going to take longer? Like when someone rolls their ankle and they it swells up, is that swelling almost a better thing than like a high ankle sprain? Just because that might be something that's able to recover a little bit faster versus because that essentially is an easier injury to come back from, essentially is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I mean, the degree of swelling doesn't always correlate with the degree of injury. You tend to see even an inversion ankle sprain tends to swell up quite a bit. The amount of swelling that you see people for is rather impressive relative to the injury. Perhaps it's indicative that there's more damage to the deltoid ligaments on the lateral portion of the ankle. But yeah, it doesn't always necessarily mean anything. I mean, a lot of people will sprain their ankle and then walk on it for a couple of days before they decide to do anything about it, and so that certainly could increase the amount of swelling that's in there. Yeah. But I mean, you can get really into the nitty gritty of whether or not swelling is a good thing or not, and whether or not anti-inflammatories can help with the healing process or not. So that's something I'm well versed in. I haven't read those studies, so don't ask me. But
that's okay. You gave me the general idea, which what I was looking for. So I appreciate that for being on the spot. Yeah, I'm definitely one of those that's, granted, with you, I tore my Achilles and then went and ate a Subway sandwich and went back home and decided to finally go to the hospital the next day. And it didn't swell. I just thought I rolled it and was going to be fine. And then
they tend not to. Yeah,
bawling in the kitchen the next morning. That'll from the pain.
Yeah. I'm actually, based on my experience, I'm actually surprised that you were in pain for as long as you were. Which tells me that maybe some of the tendon was still intact, and that's why you were experiencing so much pain. Because a lot of people who will tear an Achilles, they'll have the pain right away, and maybe some lingering pain to follow, and then the pain is gone, just because, with the complete tear, you're not, especially with that type of injury, you're not usually bruising just because there's not a lot of bleeding of vessels with it, and so once the ligament's torn, it's hard for me to even think about it. I'm sure harder for you, but yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, the ligament. Once the tendon, sorry,
yes,
misspoke there. Once the tendon is torn, you've kind of already, the damage is done, and usually the pain, because you're not using it anymore. You physically can no longer use it. It's just not there.
Yes and no. It's once your foot's stationary, and the second time, yeah, absolutely. Because I knew don't move it, don't try to step on it. That first time I was trying to walk on it, and so it's and it coiled underneath my heel, and I'm trying to step down on all the nerves from that in my heel, and so yeah, that's what the painful part was. So yeah,
interesting.
If you get hurt, make sure you consult your doctor and get
all
aid.
The disclaimers.
And get aid as fast as you can. Don't be dumb like me and think that you're going to be fine and roll it off.
No
In
pun
any
intended.
case, that was our injury questions with our not Dr. Bobby over here.
MD.
Yeah, not Dr. Bobby MD. So we'll have more questions like that. I will inform him before if I'm going to do it. That would probably be basketball injury related. Obviously, through the season, we'll probably come across some different injuries and have some questions about some things. And again, that goes along with our hopes of talking to some athletic trainers and hopefully hearing how some recoveries go for these said injuries and how they get these athletes back onto the court, which I think would be really interesting to hear. And I know I keep talking about having people on, and I promise that we will at some point. We're still getting into our gathering mode and figuring out everybody that's going to be available, whether it's NBA, G League, WNBA, or college basketball. We're going to find some people to give you guys some inside information.
Yeah, well, we can try to get some people on and make the podcast sound a little bit smarter for you folks. Help you out a little bit.
And that people who actually can say names correctly. So yes, I apologize to everybody who I have offended in this episode and have disrespected by saying a name incorrectly. I hope Bobby has fixed all of those names for me, and we will do it phonetically in the notes next time.
How much prep can you want me to
do? Yeah, I guess I can probably do some of my own.
Well, thanks for listening.
Did you have any other last comments, last things to say? Obviously, if you've made it this far and have dealt with us, thank you. We do know we have listeners that are there. We see you. We appreciate you. So thank you for sticking through this. And there will be an NBA season soon for us to talk about.
Yeah, but until then, we're just going to be keep rattling off a bunch of nonsense of predictions and such for you folks. I mean, you got to pass the time somehow, right? Yeah, but like, subscribe, share, whatever it is that folks do when they listen to or watch these episodes. Please let other people know.
Yeah. If you are listening to this, make sure you go and find us on YouTube. You can see all of our full episodes are on YouTube, as well as all of our YouTube shorts. Go on there, make your comments, yell at us, tell us how stupid we are for our takes, especially mine for saying Kobe is the best all time over MJ.
Or brilliant. Not on that one.
Or brilliant. Yeah, or brilliant. That's fine. We're more likely to get negative feedback, which I will take because any feedback is okay within the comments. And then we are also on TikTok. So go over there and find us on TikTok. It is the Bucket Bros 24. I think there's a period in between each one. But if you just type in the Bucket Bros, you should be able to find us pop up with our logo. I'm going to do it right. Look for this logo on YouTube and on TikTok. That's my spiel. Oh my God. That's my spiel. I'm done. I'm done talking. Take it away, Bobby.
No, that's all I got. Thanks again, folks. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time.
Yep. Hit him with that jump shot. This has been the Bucket Bros. See you next time.
Ciao.